I pulled into a fire station earlier after mistaking it for a car shop for a blown out tire. 3 firemen came out and taught me how to change my tire. What are some embarrassing mistakes you've made that had a positive outcome? My cousin and her husband were in a foreign country. I forget which one, but it wasn't English speaking. Driving through the countryside when they happened upon a nice looking restaurant. It was right around dinner time, so they went inside and asked for a table. The staff looked at them kind of funny, but that's to be expected when there's a language barrier. After being seated, my cousin and her husband ordered food off of the oddly sparse menu, and as they were waiting, they noticed something strange. Everyone in the restaurant looked like they were 80 or 90 years old. They dismissed it as a strange coincidence, and soon their food arrived. As the meal progressed, things began to seem more and more unusual. The diners all seemed to know one another. The waiter was helpful, but it almost seemed like he was hiding something. And lastly, my cousin realized they'd seen almost no cars parked out front, but the restaurant was full. By the end of the meal, my cousin and her husband discovered the truth. Instead of finding a quaint, roadside diner, they'd wandered into a private nursing home during dinner time. The staff had quickly figured out my cousin's mistake, but played it off like they were a typical restaurant. They had a good laugh about it at the end, and the waiter got a huge tip. Until the final paragraph, this seems like something out of the Twilight Zone. My story also involves firemen. I am a property manager at an apartment complex, and one day me and my maintenance guy were testing our fire alarms. We inadvertently set them off, which caused 4 fire engines to pull into our property within a matter of minutes. We were apologizing profusely, but the captain informed us that they had been giving some first graders a tour of the firehouse when the call came in. So 60 or so kids got to see these guys jumping down the fire pole. Lol. Get into their gear and speed away. All of the children were in awe with their jaws on the floor. The fireman was still all smiles about it when they pulled into the property. TLDR. Made some kid's day by accidentally setting off a fire alarm. Ah crap. Better find another car shop. This one only seems to service fire trucks. I want you to know that while I was perusing, this smart little comment was indeed the most amusing. I moved to the US from Morocco in 2003 and learned English from scratch. On my 3rd week or so of school, the teacher was handing out a quiz activity sheet and instructed us to clear our desks and set our textbooks on the floor. I turned and asked a classmate what floor meant, and she laughed and then told a few more girls so they could join in on the giggles. Then, this girl came from across the room, looked at all of them and said, "She's been here 3 weeks and she already speaks English better than you." So stfu. Then she taught me what floor meant and sat by me the rest of the school year and helped me understand the teacher better. She became a close friend and a sort of guide for me while I adjusted and got over the culture shock. I'll never forget her. I was supposed to meet her first date at a blues club. I was very late, 45 minutes, which was not my fault. I was in a meeting that ran long and these were the days before cell phones. I didn't expect him to still be there, but I went. He wasn't there, but I spent a very nice evening with 3 men who were in town for an athletic directors conference. They were really nice and bought me drinks all evening. No, I didn't get drunk or go back to the hotel with them. It was just a very pleasant night. As for the man I stood up, that also turned out well. We've been married for 18 years. He never misses a chance to tell the story of how I stood him up for 3 other guys. This is why you always have a first date at a blues club. If you get stood up, you just identify with the singer more. I forgot my debit card at home and didn't know how to pay with cash on the do-it-yourself tellers, so I went and paid at a cashier and met my current laddie friend. In case anyone is wondering, you put the cash in just like a vending machine. Probably the best idea ever, seeing as the lines are 1/5th of what the cashiers get. I was having a few drinks at a local bar with a group of friends on karaoke night. You can probably see where this is going. I had a little too much and was coaxed into a dare to sing a song. Normally, my decision-making process is still in check when a little buzzed, but I didn't have much of a dinner that evening, so my conscience was non-existent. Not one to be ridiculed by my mates, I said, "Why not?" and got a buddy to sing with me. Much like how location is the rule of thumb for real estate, Song choice is ever so important in karaoke, but scumbag brain totally took no heed in agreeing to sing The Lion Sleeps Tonight. It was a crowded Thursday night. My friends all stood up from their table when my friend and I were called to take the mic and started chanting and whooping, getting the bar all riled up, raising everyone's expectations. We had to rock that song. We didn't really plan this out, so when the words started showing on the screen, my friend immediately stole the easy part and went with the whammo, leaving me with the high-pitched vocals. Suddenly, I get the feeling I've made a huge mistake JPG, but with all inhibitions gone I went for it. Nailed it. The whole bar was in laughter, with a couple of YAAHS and WOOOS of encouragement from the crowd. We did the whole song, and we got a standing ovation as we walked back to our table. It was surreal. The waitress comes around, and as we ordered our round of drinks, she slipped me a piece of paper with a girl's name and number. "This girl likes you. From that table over there. TLDR. Sung embarrassing song on karaoke. Got hot girl's number." The way you typed out the lyric, it's like you're singing karaoke in my mind. And you nailed it, dude. I actually had a similar situation. I was driving and heard this big clunk and scraping sound, so I pulled into the fire station since it was just around the corner from where this happened. I initially just pulled into their lot to look under the car and see what it was, but the firemen all came out and looked too and then fixed it for me temporarily so I'd be able to take it to the garage. And I have no idea what was wrong now, but they were really sweet. Sounds like some part of your exhaust pipe came off and was dragging. Accidentally uploaded the email templates to the wrong website. The email template I uploaded was from an organic farm company with a message like, "If we don't get back to you soon, we're probably knee deep in mud." The company I uploaded it to? Yup, funeral directors. I guess the company getting a laugh out of it is somewhat positive. Oh wow. Respect to the firemen. What great chaps. By way of thanks, you should get them a case of beers and a basket of cupcakes. I am sure it would go down a hoot. I went to pick my mom up from the hospital, and as the doctor was talking to us I fainted and smacked my head against the floor. I went from caretaker to patient in less than a minute. The doctor said in all his years he had never had someone faint like that. Not quite a mistake, but still very embarrassing. Although I did get juice and cookies. I do love me some juice and cookies. A couple years back, I was very attracted to my organic chemistry lab's teaching assistant. Whenever he came near my station, I would occupy myself with my work before I did something incredibly stupid. A couple weeks ago, I accidentally ran into a man while rushing down the library's outer staircase because I needed to go to my dermatologist for a minor rash on my lower back and I was short on time. When I looked up to apologize, I saw the man was my teaching assistant. I just stared at him like an idiot. He asked me if I was okay. I went red and started talking about how wonderful the weather was. Ironically, right after I said that, it started raining, which made sense since it had been very cloudy all day. The rain got faster and harder. Because he is not an idiot like me, he had an umbrella. I think he thought I had some mental problem. Yet, very sweetly, he shared his umbrella with me. He walked me to my car, then walked away like a beautiful man. By the way, I was 40 minutes late for my appointment. I wouldn't say you're completely mental. Most 20-something college students are some level of mental. Anyway, besides, maybe he thought the stormy weather was wonderful. It wasn't really that embarrassing, but I'll tell anyway. I was in San Gimignano, an Italian town, and I went to the best ice cream, gelato, shop in the world. The guy there could speak English and he said to me, "What would you like?" I just said 2 scoops of anything. The guy smiled and said something I didn't quite catch, so I just agreed with him. When he came back with the ice cream I had pistachio and Red Bull. My brother was laughing his head off and I got loads of weird looks from lots of folks. Anyway, soon everyone in the line thought my choice of ice cream was absolutely hilarious, even though it wasn't my fault. I tried to keep my cool but my face just went red. So I took on lick and was like, "What sorcery is this?" Then everyone began ordering the same as me. So I guess it turned out okay in the end. TLDR. Asked the guy at an ice cream shop to give me any 2 flavors. I got Red Bull and pistachio, got laughed at, tasted awesome. This should seriously be a life tip. People are so afraid to try new things, especially when it comes to food. If you ask the person at the shop to just surprise you or to be creative, you'll usually get something pretty awesome. My mom's work sponsored the Argos CFL team, and they had one of those pass punk kick things with some of the players. I was a kid, maybe 10, to the throwing one, not knowing how to throw a football. I attempt to throw and it was pretty awful. The player at that station comes and shows me how to hold the football and the best way to throw it, and my next attempt was much better. But that player was Doug Flutie. Whenever I throw a football now, I think of that moment. It was just vapor lock. Don't be embarrassed about mistaking the station for a garage. In fact, visiting a fire station is a good way to get help for various non-fire, non-EMS events. Get directions, ask questions about city services, coordinate a visit and safety lesson. The thing about most firefighters is they love to help people and have an abundance of job-necessitated common sense. Couple tips on visiting a fire station. Don't block the front bay doors. They may need to leave in a hurry. Don't visit after dark unless regarding an urgent matter. Most firefighters work 24-hour shifts and need to rest. Bringing food is nice, but if you're providing a whole meal, coordinate it for their next day on. Also, they may be required to verbally refuse any gifts. Bring it anyways. Most stations buy and start cooking all their own meals first thing in the morning and your food may be redundant. A better gift? Ice cream. It keeps, and I've never met a firefighter who doesn't like ice cream. Source: I'm a firefighter. Last note, OP, really don't be embarrassed. Last week I had a guy walk in and ask for ice pack because his butt hurt, and he wasn't even mildly embarrassed. I've had people ask for directions, ask how to install a water heater, what fire extinguisher to buy, to inspect child seats, to check car fluid levels, cut off rings, recommend restaurants. If we can't help, we'll point you to a resource that can. I was working a job. I wish I could tell you what the job was cause it would make this story more interesting, but alas, I cannot. It required me to sit in a hotel lobby for hours at a time. It was boring as heck, but hey, I was getting paid to essentially do nothing. So a group of people that were staying at the hotel came down from their rooms and sat in the lobby. First thing I thought was, people OOD. Anyway, to cure my boredom I started chatting them up and they were actually really cool and really fun to talk to. So eventually I asked them why they were staying here and one of them says, oh, our band is playing here. And I said, oh cool, you're in a band? What's your band called? And they say, Alabama Shakes. My eyes go wide and I instantly feel like an idiot for not recognizing them. I practically yell at them. I listen to you guys every night before I go to bed. They were flattered and laughed. It's so awesome to meet artists you adore and to find out how down to earth they are. For the rest of the day they would come in and out of the hotel, and whenever they saw me they would chat me up for a bit. It really made my day 100% better. TL. DR. Worked boring job in hotel. Accidentally befriended the Alabama Shakes. Boredom cured. I was working a job. I wish I could tell you what the job was cause it would make this story more interesting, but alas, I cannot. Dang. Someday I really want to have a job I can't tell anyone about. I part-timed as a waitress for this high-end expat-oriented restaurant until this Wednesday. On Monday, this MILF-tastic 40-something lady came in with her 4 kids and sat at the VIP area, which was within my zone. I took her orders, mostly flustered at how attractive she was. I messed up 2 of the food orders for her children. It was an embarrassing mistake for this kind of restaurant, and if reported to the manager, it would come out of my pay. Half an hour later, when I took the food to her table, she realized my mistake. She pointed it out, scowling at first. I bowed and apologized to her, wishing she wouldn't report it. She then held my hand and said it's fine, kind of laughing it off. She then asked about my background. I explained it to her while she was still holding my hand and her children were snickering to themselves. She then asked, "You've got a fascinating accent. My name. Do you like music?" I said yes and told her I used to play the violin. She then asked for my number and invited me over to her house this Friday to play for her. I went yesterday and unknowingly lesbian gigoloed myself. She pounced me after I played Paganini's Devil's Laughter for her. I still have the marks where she dug her nails into my thighs. Fun times. This didn't go where I was expecting it to go. Just remember this moment the next time someone is completely oblivious about a computer problem and you're in a position to help. I always assumed that geeks had an interest in how cars work too, since they both are fun to tinker with. Guess I'm the only one. This just happened to my cousin. She needed 2 new tires and her dad told her to go to Costco and pull right into their car shop. Instead, she pulled right through the huge doors in the front of Costco into the store. She pulled through to where people go into the grocery store of Costco. Had to be hilarious to be working that day. They had to tell a 19-year-old girl to please back her car out of a grocery store. She was quite embarrassed. "Mom, can you please remove your 2,000 pounds vehicle from the front of the store? Thank you." There used to be an annual rite of passage for English school kids. The day we all got our TB vaccinations. It really isn't that bad, but it was also an annual tradition for the older kids to make it out like it was going to be horrendous. I'm nervous as heck. I see the nurses setting up ready and just casually ask what time I would be called so I can mentally prepare for it. "What's your name?" "It's Zerby." "Okay, Mr. Zerby, you can be first. Have a seat." Spent the rest of the day watching the rest of my classmates get called, and of course telling them how painful the experience was. Grin. We didn't get the BCG jab once a year. It was a once in a lifetime thing. It just always happened around the same time. The cycle of life, and it moves in a cycle. There really needs to be a mandatory high school class on car basics, especially as teenagers move into driving age. Changing a tire oil, how the engine works, what all the fluids are for, what happens when you don't maintain different bits, etc. But that's not on the standardized tests. But seriously, I used to think that too, but it's very area dependent. Many of my high school students in a city will never need a car. I thought I could make it to work, 2 miles, on an underinflated tire. I got about a block and a half. It was raining. It was Christmas Eve and I had the only keys to the store. I had no freaking clue how to change a tire. I had my flashes on as I was trying to figure it out and a fire truck showed up and 3 really good looking firemen changed it for me. TLDR. Firemen are bad but not me, but my aunt did this while on vacation in Germany with her husband. They were driving across the countryside staying at B&Bs they found along the way. She spotted a nice little place and told my uncle to pull over so she could run in and check it out. A very nice older lady opened the door and obliged when my aunt asked to be shown around. After the tour the lady offered my aunt some tea, and while she was sitting in the living room drinking her tea she realized that this wasn't a B&B, it was someone's home. I'm also a disappointment to men everywhere. Frick that. Be yourself. You're awesome just as you are. Non-manly men. Frick yeah. I once called Apple support, maybe 15 years ago, for an iMac I was having issues with. The guy on the phone was guiding me through some troubleshooting when he asked if I realized I had called some sort of golfing hotline. He just happened to have a Mac and was trying to help. I forget what the problem was, but he did help me fix it. I was just getting back in town, having spent the better part of my day wade fishing on the coast. I was dressed in pretty ratty clothing, torn jeans, faded and torn shirt, ancient tennis shoes and no socks, and fairly soggy. I ducked into a gas station near my place to pick up a pack of smokes, and locked my fricking keys in my car. Apparently, Slim Jim lockpicks were legal in Texas at one point. That isn't true anymore, because I walked to every single business within 10 blocks looking for one with no luck. Finally I came across the neighborhood fire station. The place seemed completely deserted, except for the open garage doors and bags of serious looking firefighting stuff. I tentatively approached the open garage, calling out hello every few steps to announce myself. The foremost thought in my mind at this point was that I did not want to startle an entire fire crew, possibly armed with axes, by stumbling through their back door. Keep in mind that I am still dressed in what is essentially a Seahead costume. A sudden commotion in the parked fire engine caused me to pause and a minute later a guy pokes his head out of one of the side windows. I explained my situation and he told me to hold on. He vanished back inside the truck and there were a couple of minutes of considerable racket like he was digging through a huge pile of stuff. After a while I heard him go ha and he walked out from behind the back of his fire engine carrying a long black case. It was the most amazing lock popping kit I have ever seen. The guy showed me how to use everything and told me I could walk the kit down to the end of the block to the gas station where I had left my car, as long as I brought it back within a half hour or so. I was done in 10 minutes and returned to a completely silent and seemingly uninhabited fire station. After waiting around for 5 or 10 minutes I gave up and stuck the kit next to a pile of gear just inside the door. That guy saved me a whole shitload of grief that day. TLDR. In an emergency, go to the fire department first. Those guys are freaking awesome. Something similar happened to me when I was 19. I was in an empty parking lot. My tire blew out. It was my first car and my ex-stepfather had failed to teach me basics about car maintenance. Some guy pulled up next to me, hopped out of his truck, and asked if I needed help. I asked him to show me how to change a tire, because no one had taught me before. He had no problems walking me through it step by step. He didn't do any work, just told me what to do. Awesome guy. I'm habitually horrible at purchasing gifts for people. We didn't celebrate birthdays around my household very often, and when my brother and I became teenagers, Christmas was virtually non-existent. So, a few years ago I was convinced by a now ex-girlfriend to buy a gift for my mother for her birthday, something I had never done. I bought her a vacuum cleaner. When it was explained to me that this wasn't an appropriate gift, my argumentative response was, what's the point in getting someone something if they aren't going to use it? My mother vacuums. I bought her a vacuum cleaner. Makes perfect sense to me. I decided to just start giving people money or gift cards. It's a lot less harmful that way, apparently. My mom got me a vacuum for my day a few years ago. I have cats and they shed, so she got me a bad but one made for pet hair. I agree with you. I'd rather have stuff I'll use than crap I put on a shelf or would never use. We learned the law of cosines in Cal 2. I went to my professor's office hours to ask if there existed a law of sines. Turns out that each implies the other. Felt like a dumbass, but I learned something that I otherwise would, perhaps, not have known. I was a finance major as an undergrad and completely forgot about pre-calc from high school. So yes, this was college, not HS. As a math professor myself, what you did is exactly what we want our students to do. You learned something and then wanted to know more and came to office hours to ask an interesting follow-up question. Seriously, I bet your prof told the other profs how cool you were. I met this girl who was an international student from Turkmenistan. While this wasn't embarrassing, I offered her that we should get coffee before our next class. I asked what she wanted, and she said she trusted my decision to get her something delicious. I got her a mocha with caramel sauce in it, right? Delicious. She freaked out, because mocha was, well, let's just say it's something you let out of your body after drinking and or eating. She couldn't believe at my deception, until I told her it was another word for chocolate. After that, and since then, she absolutely loves coffee. When my grandfather died, my brother and I inherited his car, an old Pontiac Bonneville 1982, the year I was born. On my first road trip with the car, my friends and I just simply could not find the fuel hole. The three of us, 3 girls of course, had to stand in the middle of the garage explaining to the guys that we didn't know where the fuel thingy was. It took 30 minutes and 3 mechanics to find it underneath the license plate. I was in the supermarket and got separated from my family. I was wandering around looking for them, and I finally found her. Nope, not her, but she gave me a cookie, so it was cool. I was in Ecuador with some fellow students. I was 16 and, even though my mother is fluent in Spanish, my skills weren't up to snuff. My friend got her period in the rainforest. She had nothing to deal with it, so we hiked up the road to the only store within 25 miles. I had no idea how to ask for tampons in Spanish, and she spoke no Spanish. All I could say was El flujo de sangre del mes, which means blood flow of the month. The woman stopped and blinked and asked me, for some reason, if I was from Switzerland. I said no, and then she grabbed a box of OB tampons and said OB. I said, yes. She said tampons. I said, oh, okay, tampons. and realized that, in rural Ecuador, they only have one brand, it's OB, and that I could have saved myself a lot of embarrassment if I had just asked for it. But in the US, we have so many kinds. TLDR, learned how to ask for tampons in Spanish. I almost landed in Egypt jail during Hosni Mubarak's time for this. In 2009, I visited Cairo for a training, and the first chance we got, my colleague and I went to see the pyramids. On the way out, I saw a line of policemen, about 10-15 of them, seated just inside the exit gate, with their officers and patrol cars parked next to them. They were wearing their white uniform with combat boots and black berets and machine guns slung on their arms. Since I had brought my really nice camera with me and couldn't pass the opportunity of catching a nice, memorable photo, I walked up to them, pointed the camera at them and went, "Photo, yes, camera, yes." They looked at me for a couple of seconds, then at each other, then stood up and started shouting "Lala" no while walking towards me. So I slowly backed away with "Okay, thank you, it's okay, I am going," when their superintendent, sitting by the side, motions me over to come to him, and I thought, oh my god, I really don't want to go to Egypt jail. Even the Egyptians are afraid of that. So with what I think was a mix of a grin and anxiety, I walked up to him, and he motions me to sit down next to him, and then he puts his arm on my shoulder and then hands the camera to my colleague and motions him to take the photo. So, in the end, I had my photo taken with the Egypt police. That's no garage, it's a fire station. I used to bull-see fire hydrants back home, and they aren't much bigger than that. As a computer guy, you should be ashamed for one reason only. If you had only RTFM, it explains in there exactly what to do. The other night around 10 PM I was driving and just pulled out of a gas station and stopped at a red light. The driver across the way saw I didn't have my lights on, so he flashed his brights at me. I said to myself, dang, forgot my lights, so I flashed my brights as a thank you. As I was driving away, he flashed his brights again, so I waved my hand saying thanks again. About 30 seconds later I noticed I still didn't turn my lights on. I felt like an idiot, but I'm glad that person gave me a couple heads ups, or else I would have drove home with no lights on most likely. Most embarrassing mistake. Non-getting super wasted. Me decides to get trashed after a tumultuous 4 years of undergrad. It goes a little something like this: over a 45-min period with no dinner, 2.5 shots of tequila, poured into a glass, so maybe more, hard to tell, 1 amaretto sour, 2 shots of Jameson. Details are hazy until I get home, wake up in what I wore the night before. I'm a girl, to clarify this. Go to my bikini wax still drunk at 10:30 AM. Have time to kill before my therapist, so I use my Groupon to get a blowout makeup application at a fancy butt salon in Nick. Still drunk. On a day when they weren't making appointments due to a renovation, but they allowed drunk me to go in anyway. Get too much makeup applied. I'm only putting together an IKEA bed that night. Throw up during my 45-min therapy session. Drunk shop for a bikini for my upcoming trip to Puerto Rico. Drunk putting together a bed from IKEA. TLDR. I was drunk from 1 AM to 6 PM the next day while getting salon services, seeing my therapist, shopping, assembling a bed. Positive outcome? Bed is awesome. I just wanted to remark that firemen are freaking awesome. They're incredibly capable and helpful people, who when not saving our lives and property are bored out of their goddamn minds. Every day I drive by the station a few blocks down and there's a guy out in the parking lot on an exercise bike with some earbuds in, watching traffic go by while he works out so that he can carry me down some stairs if need be. Firemen are hot. Zuko said hi. Once I got pulled over for speeding, and after the officer gave me my ticket, he heard some squealing from my engine. He asked me if it always did that. I said yes, and then he asked me if I had any tools. So I told him yes, there was a small kit in my trunk. I popped the trunk and the hood and the officer showed me how to tighten my belt to stop the squealing. Also, I laughed when I looked at the ticket and realized that I had no chance in court, because his name was, crap you not, Officer Wisdom. Everybody should know how to change a tire, spark plugs, and oil in their own cars. You are paying people for the equivalent of you installing RAM into their computer. Comma, you are paying people for the equivalent of you installing RAM into their computer. Interesting, when you put it that way. I love doing this stuff on my own, but currently live in an apartment. Since I've lived here I've realized why people use quick oil change places. I miss having a damned garage to work in. I was a virgin and missed and put it in her butt. She was cool with it. This did not happen. Me and my girlfriend were road tripping from NY. First time in the US, we're from Sweden. We picked up a rental '07 Impala at JFK and started driving. When we got to DC, I was tired of driving and it was time for a switch. My GF is 1 foot shorter than me though, so she barely reached the pedals. We pulled the electronic seat buttons all ways imaginable, managed to lower and tip the seat but not pull it forward. So, we found the National Car Rental representative at Delaware Airport. We explained the problem to this big African American woman, and then she reached in and pulled the seat button forward. Voila. We must have looked extremely stupid, so she each gave us a hug and a smile and we drove off. I am a scrawny butt man. I'm straight. I'm also a disappointment to men everywhere. Man hugs. Every day I step out of the house. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. Comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe you magnificent person.